So far. So it didn't come on yet. Apparently not.
This is for the dreamers. All the doers and schemers with side hustles core. The I got nexters and the why not fears.
Take out the video and then
make it
mute.
on your own.
So where's Ethel?
Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for Committee Chair Tyus to get on the call, then the meeting will start, hopefully within the next, couple minutes.
Thank you.
And just FYI, this meeting is concurrently being live streamed to YouTube. Everyone on call right now, please do not share any personally identifying information. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Sorry I'm late. Trying to pick the right link here. So, I hope everyone has been well since our last meeting on July 21st, as a committee, that is. And I just want to be a little bit more formal than I've been in the past, which is to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded. I thought I would have some good news tonight about us continuing to meet with a executive order of some sort, but I understand that Governor Hochul has submitted a bill to suspend the open meetings law, so we're going to wait to see what happens with that. So just reminding everyone that the meeting is being recorded, and the board office posts the recordings on YouTube with a link from the board's website. So that will be there for anybody who wants to go back and take a look at what was covered. Tonight, we're going to have two agenda items. I thought we would have four, but two of the would-be applicants did not follow the protocol for notice to the neighbors. It would have been LPC items for changes to buildings in historic districts. So with that said, again, I welcome everybody to the meeting. And we have the good grace of Kathy Island to act as a secretary to this committee going forward. And we would cover 266 Brooklyn Avenue after we have a roll call that establishes that we have a quorum. Ms. Island, can you proceed with the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Tyus. Albert Alberton.
Present.
Lisa Atkinson.
Present.
Princess Lynn James.
Present.
Thank you.
Present.
Ann Buckholtz. Robert Callahan. Anna Collins.
Present.
Nora Daniel. Kevin Farley.
What was I heard?
Was that Janet?
Yes.
Yes, Janet, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Nora Daniel. Kevin Farley.
Present.
Najoni Granville.
Present. Can you hear me? Present.
Yes. Kathy Island, yes. Zarima Jordan.
Here.
Peter Crashus.
Here.
Sarah Lazor.
Here.
Muriel Lemaine. Elaine Mahoney. Quasi Mensa. Fior Ortiz.
Present.
Robert Puca. Celine Rosado.
Present.
Adam Sachs. Meredith Stanton. Ethel Tyus.
Present.
Gib Viconi.
I see. Okay.
Irsa Weatherspoon. Sharon Wedderburn. Elaine Weinstein.
Present.
and Deborah Young.
Present.
I believe we have a quorum.
What's the number again?
1, 2, 3, 4. 16.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving right along, I would ask the representative, the applicant for 266 Brooklyn Avenue to come forward and present themselves, name, and then make a presentation, please.
Yes, good evening, Committee Board 8. This is Dennis George with George Architect. The project that I'm presenting for, a certificate of appropriateness and requesting your support is at 66 Brooklyn Avenue within the Crown Heights Historical District. Just a little backstory. We started the work on the project at the beginning of the year, taking over from the previous team. And we brought an approach and a goal of restoring this historic home back to its original condition. The current structural scope approved at the staff level, which is ongoing, includes masonry repairs, lintel replacement throughout, and a new floor framing system in preparation for the new work. The restoration replacement scope included bringing back the missing architectural elements, items like the cornice facing both streets on Brooklyn Avenue and Lincoln Place, and the Juliet balcony facing Brooklyn Avenue. All those were previously approved at the staff level, and I guess it's our hope that this may inspire our neighbors to probably do the same. Given that this row house of 11 homes were designed by a prominent architecture firm in 1909 by the name of McNeil Architects, we became more aware of its historic significance. The homes were designed as a double duplex with individual street entrances, which was a unique feature at that time it was built. And we are maintaining, that original structure as part of the project. So we are here to seek a letter of certificate of appropriateness for the following new work. And this work has to do with the introducing modern conveniences while respecting the architectural history of the home, also with reference to the character and history of the neighborhood. We are proposing a 2-car garage on Lincoln Place, a curb cut, and a roof terrace. The idea was to maintain the established architectural vocabulary, both in terms of character. Like, I guess I could share my screen at this point in time.
That would be helpful.
Yes. Okay, start right there. So I guess I'll just go through just what we're proposing. So a 2-car garage. Could everyone see the screen?
I can see it.
Okay, great. So we're proposing a 2-car garage and a curb cut and a roof terrace at the garage level. We're proposing window masonry openings at the rear facade on the 3rd and 4th floor, and I'll go through this in the drawings. Also propose metal balcony at the rear 3rd floor. The proposed Juliet balcony at the Brooklyn Avenue, which was previously approved. We are, I guess, proposing a material change for which I would also go through that. And then there will be a proposed enlarged stair bulkhead at the main roof. And a pergola at the third floor and the main roof, and cornice at the rear, cornice and a new parapet height at the rear facade, and replacement of all the windows with metal clad wood windows, and that same thing as go for the doors as well. So this is, I guess this is the tax photo, shows the different times in history and the current photo, which with the missing cornice. The 1940s tax photo shows the building intact as designed by the architects in 1909, and the middle shows a 1980 tax photo. It's the district map, historical district map, and our, I guess, building is at the western northern portion of that district, that red line. This shows the building right here on Brooklyn Avenue, Lincoln Place. It's a corner building, so it has both exposure, both on Brooklyn Avenue and Lincoln Place side. This is the block plan, and I could just highlight a few things. This is what we're showing as proposed. There are 3 sight lines, one taken along Brooklyn Avenue intersection with Lincoln Place across the street, one taken further down, and this will be at Easton Parkway, looking back, and one taken along Lincoln Place, just a few feet away from the building. That's existing, and that's the proposed, and these are, photos which I would are on the next page. In yellow shows the garage, and the middle portion shows at the third floor terrace, the pergola, and also the cornice at the main roof, and showing also the pergola and then the bulkhead on the roof. The idea with, I guess I could go through that as we move along. So this is just, it's an aerial view photo taken along Lincoln Place, and shows just, I'll just briefly go through. So we have the proposed bulkhead at the main roof. Let's see. So the proposed is in red, and the existing bulkhead is behind it. So we're not exactly changing the width of the bulkhead. We're just extending it towards the Brooklyn Avenue side, and I'll show you in plan how that works. The proposed parapet cornice at the rear facade. Currently, it's a lower portion at this side, and given the work that we're doing on the roof, it certainly requires to be raised, and we are proposing to wrap the cornice, the cornice around at this facade. And then there will be the pergola at the third floor roof, and the new masonry open at this side, and on the fourth floor terrace, and then on the same thing on the third floor, new masonry opening and the projecting balcony. This area where we see the car would be the location of the garage. And going down on the street level, there's an existing, garden wall, which is where we're proposing the garage. The existing fence, both at the driveway, which is shared by all the 11 buildings along Brooklyn Avenue, would stay the same and not be touched. And but we will restore the gate and paint it with a consistent color, as I would show in the next proposed slides. Along Brooklyn Avenue, this is the location of the pergola that we propose to replace. So moving on. So this is one of the sight lines which I mentioned. So this is on the intersection of Brooklyn Avenue and Lincoln Place. And I guess the point I would make is that the the bulkhead is not visible, and only a portion of the pergola would be visible, and it would only project at least like 2 feet above that sight line. And then this is taken from Eastern Parkway, and I will zoom in so you could get a sense of just what we're looking at. So if you zoom in, what is shown, what you could see at this point is the existing bulkhead, and then the extension of the new proposed bulkhead would not even be visible because it would be concealed by the parapet and also by the existing chimney. These are photos at the roof. This is looking west, towards the rear of the property. That's looking north towards the adjacent properties and the church in the background. That's looking towards Brooklyn Avenue, and this photo is looking towards the rear of the building. It's existing, and these are other shots showing that there's an area where the building sets back to align with the adjacent buildings along Brooklyn Avenue, and that's just a lower portion at the yard. So again, just to orient, Brooklyn Avenue, Lincoln Place, that's the existing building, and that's the location of the 2-car garage. There's an existing curb cut, so we will be extending that curb cut right in front of the entry to the garage. Let's see, let me go back one more. Let's see, okay. So the second floor, I guess there'll be a roof terrace. There'll be a staircase going up to the roof terrace. And just to address this right now, this is a roof terrace. It's not for storage, but it's more for the owners to use for, I guess, as a place to, as a sitting area or as an area to have their plants. And I know there's a that it may be used as storage. So that's the upper level. And then moving up, this is the 3rd floor where along Brooklyn Avenue, there would be the replacement Juliet balcony, and at the rear would be the terrace facing the rear yard. This is at the 4th floor where we have the terrace, so there would be, I guess, that enlarged window opening, and we'll have the pergola on this side, and then on the main roof, that's the bulkhead. The area in yellow is where the bulkhead would be extended forward. Basically, I would show you in section that we, given the new layout of the building, interior of the building, there's a requirement to have a certain amount of headroom, which is why we, I guess, the extension is further north, further west. And then that's the previously approved cornice, which wraps around, and the proposed cornice, and raised parapet at the rear of the property. Oops. So this is an elevation taken drawn from showing the Lincoln Place elevation, showing the existing building and the proposed garage, 2 doors. There'll be existing gate, which will remain, and that will be painted black to match the rest of the doors. And actually, I'm sorry, I'll take that back. It'll be painted sort of dark charcoal to match the rest of the windows and doors of the new proposed. There is, and I would show, at a later time, the brick detail at the upper portion, but in concept, what we're doing is matching the existing base of the building and using that same brick pattern and replicating at the upper portion of the garage. The pilaster, which was existing, we are, I guess, we're just identically replicating that, I guess, as part of the the fabric of the street front. On the side view, we're showing, I guess, the projecting balcony, and I'll show you the elevation in the next slide. This is the view from Brooklyn Avenue, and this shows the sight line of the, I guess, the rooftop additions. The profile of the bulkhead doesn't change, except we are extending it forward towards Brooklyn Avenue. And then that's the pergola, which is barely, I guess, visible, from that sight line. At the rear of the building, that's the existing elevation, and these dark areas show the areas in which we propose to enlarge the masonry opening. So that's existing, and this is the proposed. So a new window masonry opening, and at the 3rd floor and the 4th floor, and the new balcony at this point. The brick in this area is common brick, and brick that you typically find at the rear of most of these brownstones. And we felt that I guess the pairing with the wrought iron railing for the balcony would be a good match. I guess also contrast with the darker windows. It would certainly be appropriate in this sense. Just to give you an idea, just the drawing of just of the existing garden wall. Okay, just a larger section, which we went through before, and a section of the building just showing the garage, the balcony, the Juliet balcony, and the extension of the roof. So what I pointed out before is just in terms of the interior architecture and the requirement for the staircase, I guess stipulated the requirements for the stair bulkhead and the need for headroom access and so forth. So we have the bulkhead for access, and then we would have a mechanical room facing that eastern portion of the bulkhead. These are views to the inner side of the garage. So this is the inner court, and this is the side facing the driveway. A general section through the street front of the garage. And if I could just zoom in, it shows the railing, it shows the coping, which would match the existing building, and that would be the decorative brick pattern, which we replicate in the front facade, and the pilaster, and then the garage door. And just larger views. Again, it's the 3rd floor terrace. If I zoom in, basically your French doors with double hung windows on either side, and with a solid panel, metal panel at the base of those windows. And again, it's a wrought iron fence, wrought iron railing, which actually is replicated from, and we are somewhat replicating the wrought iron that is found on the lower portion of the building at the street front. So, I guess verticals, and then the circle detail, and I guess the top rail. So this is a view of the looking along Lincoln Place, and we have the pergola. There's the decorative, I guess, which used to be the dump here. So we're using that to act as the structure for the pergola. Okay. Again, this is a section at the roof showing in more detail the bulkhead. So the bulkhead is this wide, 10 feet wide, and we're adding 9'9" to the bulkhead. So basically, this portion would be the portion allowed for the, I guess, the headroom, and the rear, I guess, the eastern portion would be the mechanical room. Okay. In this shot, I'm showing the existing brick that's at the building, the upper portion of the building, and at also the lower portion at the base of the building. So we are using and trying to match the brick as close as possible, and using the same pattern at the new garage. And this would be, I guess, identical, I guess, brick for the pilasters. There's the windows we are proposing are metal, wood-clad windows, and with I guess, the historically accurate brick mold that goes throughout, I guess, throughout the facade. We are also proposing the entry to both entries to both units on the Brooklyn Avenue and the Lincoln Place side, and that would be the garage, which would be painted a charcoal color. And I guess I could go through this. There were essentially, we disapprove in cast stone with LPC on the staff level, but given the fact that we are, I guess the building is really weak. The 100-year-old brick is really fragile. So we consulted our engineer, and he was concerned putting additional weight on the building would not be a good idea. So the option that we explored would be a fiberglass material, which would match, I guess, exactly the color texture of a cast stone material. In terms of the joints, it would be the base of it, would be a single material. The brackets would also be a single material, and the joints will be where they, I guess, both materials meet at the top and bottom. The same thing with the rail, the top rail, or pilasters would be a single material. Each of the balusters would also be individual materials, and the top rail would also be an individual material. And it will be mitered where it turns a corner to minimize the joints. So that gives you an idea of just what I guess the idea and the direction behind that. That's just a section through there. Essentially, we to have a lighter material certainly makes sense because we are anchoring back to the existing brick, just to, I guess, minimize the weight. And let's see. And I think that's it. I'm happy to, let me see if I could.
Thank you, Mr. George. That was very informative. I want to know from committee members present if there are any questions. But I'd like to preface that offer to have questions come into you at this time to make sure the audience knows that they need to give their full names so that their attendance can be recorded if they intend to become voting members of this land use committee. Under the community board's bylaws, community members can become voting members of committees if they attend 3 meetings in a row. 4th meeting, you could vote, but you need to identify yourself at each one of these meetings. So you're giving your full name. If you're calling in, you're going to announce your name so it can be recorded in the minutes and your presence can be noted. With that said, I go back to my offer to the attendees to ask questions. Are there questions from the attendees? Please give your name, raise your hand. Any questions out there? there any comments or statements on the presentation?
This is Joyner.
Yes.
A couple of
Go
questions. Okay. I wanted to ask about the Colesville boundary from a correction.
We can't hear her.
I
You
think
can't
you're
hear me?
breaking up a little bit. Could you say that again, please?
I'm sure you hear me better.
Okay, I could hear you.
You can. I am
Yeah.
having
Please speak up,
Wi-Fi.
Ms. Joyner. Okay.
We can hear you,
yeah,
but
my-
you're going in and out.
Someone is also speaking and there's static as I'm speaking
Ms.
too.
Joyner,
I don't
go
know
ahead.
where
Yeah,
that's coming from.
that was, you go ahead. You have the floor.
One of my questions, my first question is regarding the proposed rear balcony.
Okay.
Why wouldn't that balcony in the rear be made of the as the Juliet in front?
Well, the Juliet balcony is it's not a functional balcony, so it's a full balcony, and it will be made of fiberglass, and it's so basically you cannot step out onto that balcony. It's more of a decorative, I guess, architectural element on the facade. In designing the rear facade, and I did mention that before, the rear brick is something what we call common brick, which is just a plain brownish brick that you usually find at the rear of most of these brownstone buildings and also the side of the buildings. So you could tell from the rent, the face of the building facing the street is a light color brick, and that at the rear is darker. So we felt like this is a secondary facade, and it probably doesn't require such a, I guess, elaborate, decorative balcony as you find on the Brooklyn Avenue side. Also, the idea that we are taking cues from what happens at the fence, the design of the fence, and using that at the railings, I guess becomes an interesting idea. We're somewhat replicating and using portions of the existing fabric. If I could zoom, I'm not sure. I'm already also hooked. Could see the balcony. So what we're also doing is we have two brackets at the base of the balcony, and the floor of the balcony. The floor edge is sort of a decorative, profile, which sort of lends itself to, I guess, this rear facade, and and somewhat complements the window.
Thank you, Mr. George. I believe we have a global comment from Crown Heights North President Deborah Young.
Well, I can't say it's global, but I had a question which it might be connected to Fiore's question. Is this the new part of a new structure for the back balcony that you're proposing?
No, it's not. It's an existing.
It's existing?
Yeah, it's existing. So we're not adding anything to the building except for the garage. The only thing we're doing is condensing the windows so it works with the interior layout. Let me go back to one of the originals so you're more aware. Hold on. Okay, so this is the existing rear facade, and what we're doing is we're, I guess, blocking up those windows, filling in those windows, and creating a much larger opening. Because this is the area on the third floor where the main kitchen is. So the idea was to have a much condensed opening, aligned with the layout of the kitchen. Did I answer?
Okay. So you are not you said you are not adding anything, because in this, oh, okay. So what I'm looking at in the photo to the left has the
Right.
2 windows, and now what you're proposing is to open them up to include maybe a door, a double door,
Yes.
and then you're doing a proposed balcony.
Yes, exactly.
So there's no balcony there now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it is a structure that's going to be added.
Yeah, it's going to be added. Yes.
Okay, so I think maybe I didn't clearly ask my question when I asked, was this something new? And you said, no, it's existing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, it is a. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right.
It is a new proposed
Okay.
balcony. Yes.
No harm done. I probably didn't ask the question correctly. Okay, so it's new. Okay, fine. All right. I probably have more, but I'll come back.
Okay.
Okay. There seems to be another question, Ethel.
Yes, you had a statement in the chat, Ms. Young. Do you want to go any further with that?
Okay. Did everyone read it? Let me see. Let me go back to it. Okay, this was this for the committee members. What I put in the chat was part of what was included in our letter to the applicant. And basically, we were not in support. Okay, I'm trying to read it. Where is it? I'm sorry, I keep losing it. Okay, I'll just read it to the group. Originally, when built at all the Crown Heights North Kinkos, there are several styles in the area that had rooftop gardens. This was part of the plan. The downstairs duplex had the garden. The upstairs duplex had a roof garden. If plans are to keep the original footprint, then we can support this. The proposed bulkhead is needlessly large. Originally, they were just large enough to allow for full-size doorway leading up from the constructed staircase for rooftop garden access. You have not given a reason for the larger size. Enlarging it totally dwarfs the parapet, changing both the sight lines on New York and Brooklyn Avenue. Crown Heights North does not support this. That's what I in the chat. Now, do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure. And let me go to the section which I showed before. The building was built code, and with the new code, we need to upgrade all the staircase, I guess, lengths and pitch to comply with current code, which I guess stipulates and also, I guess, prevents us from using the original footprint. So definitely with the new layout of the building, of the interior layout, and things shifting, the headroom requirement, for in that area, I guess stipulated it to be this wide. And in addition, we also are adding a mechanical room at the eastern portion of the bulkhead. So I guess it's, and when viewed, alongside the adjacent, if I could go back to the block plan, I could probably show you. Let's see that. When viewed alongside the bulkhead, it's almost in line with the rest of the bulkheads along Brooklyn Avenue, except that it projects just slightly. But it's not visible from any of the streets and from the sight lines.
Okay. I guess we thought from the drawings it looked like it was visible from both Brooklyn and New York Avenue. That's what it appeared to us, that it would be visible.
No, it's not. It's not visible. And let me go to those photos. So, this is along Brooklyn Avenue and Lincoln, and I guess looking at this, nothing's visible. None of the bulkheads are visible alongside the avenue. And
Certainly the ones in the other houses wouldn't be visible, but yours is on the corner.
yes, mine is on the corner, but also it's not visible
Okay.
because of the angle and the depth of the sight line. It's, we're not increasing the dimension away from the party wall. We're keeping that the same, except we just extended it towards Brooklyn Avenue. And even with the extension, it's not even visible. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. George. We
You're
have another question. From
Okay.
Peter Crassus, do you want to ask your question, Peter?
Sure. Would it be possible to go back to the photo of the location of the garage as it exists now, not the garage itself? Okay.
Is this one?
Yeah, that one's good. Thank you. I'm just curious about the addition of the garage, and I know you said the curb cut is there, so you'd be extending the curb cut, but you'd be creating 2 additional new openings for pedestrians to be having to keep an eye on, because you said the other driveway, the doors to the left are a driveway for 11 buildings, and
yes.
So why do you need the garage? Can you explain the rationale behind the garage to begin with? And I mean, I understand the benefit to the building, but from the perspective of the character of the existing building and the neighborhood context, can you explain the value of the garage?
Sure. The dimension of that driveway is very narrow, and I probably need to go to another photo. Okay, so this is the existing, if I could zoom in here. This is the existing, I guess, driveway going through. And for a car to come in and turn, they have nicked their cars so many times. And and this was not even in the cards in terms of a proposal, and I suggested this to them, and but it was somewhat in the back of their minds. And having the car access directly from the street would certainly help in that way, be logical. And if you look throughout Brooklyn, even in this neighborhood, like say Brooklyn Avenue and Bergen, there are many examples of a car garage accessing from the side street, and it's a natural occurrence having a corner building.
But this building didn't have it originally, and the conditions of the tight turn were original too, and there's a kind of sight line from the street which looks across as an open, you're seeing more sky, I would guess, as a pedestrian if you're walking by and the garage isn't there.
Right.
Yeah. So there's some sacrifice on the part of the public for the creation of the garage, which would be, I'm sure, really nice for whoever's living in the building.
Right.
Yeah. And also just given the context, if you look on the opposite side of Brooklyn Avenue, the other corner building that has the funeral home, they have an extension at the 4th floor, an extension at the 3rd floor, an extension at the 2nd floor, 1st and 2nd floor, all the way back to that driveway. So in terms of bulk, they really have overextended just the building within this context. So what we are doing is quite minimal, and even though it's a matter of convenience, but it's certainly quite minimal. We are, providing the space between the building and the garage, a place for the tenants, and also at the top of the roof, also a place, more of a communal place for both residents, and it certainly would not be a hangout spot, but more of a garden space, since the space for where the garage, where the cars were, is now taken up by the garage, and it's not exactly. We have taken over the open space in that.
Okay, I would like to add to the garage issue. While we did not have an issue with the garage per se, we did have concerns about the rooftop deck, and that is something we do not support. I also want to add in that you made reference to you did a comparison to the funeral parlor and how they extended back, but that was way before we were historically designated. So that changes up the dynamics. The other part, which is more personal to some of us, and I guess if you don't have neighbors that have an issue with it, by creating a garage, you would be taking away or eliminating one or two parking spaces from your neighbors. But if they're not here to complain about that, I shouldn't. And I'm not complaining, I just states an obvious.
Right.
So for the convenience of two of the tenants, but at the expense of people who live in the community who would not be able to park in front of your garage. So I don't have a, problem with that. But that's not representative of the association.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Are there other comments here?
Giles?
I see a comment from Princess Ben James. I'm working backwards in time, so please forgive me. Looking back at the comments that have come in, I see Ms. Wedderburn mentioned that the House of Hill alterations were done prior to landmarking, as Ms. Young pointed out. Let's see, am I missing anybody else? Ms. Ben James, you want to bring your question forward? Ms. Ben James?
Where's Princess?
Yes, I'm here. The fact remains that at the start of the, sorry, I'm on the road. The start of your conversation, you talk about restoration. But what I'm hearing from you, there's no restoration. It's like, it seems like you're doing something totally different from what you started your conversation with. There's a difference between restoration, and I think that that's not restoration you're doing. You're speaking about deck and pergola. So can you explain all of this? Because from where I am sitting, I'm not hearing any restoration, and I'm not hearing you're doing what you said at the start of your conversation.
Well, we are, thank you for your question. Yes, we are, I guess, restoring all the masonry, facade of the building, restoring the lintels above the windows, replacing all the windows with historically accurate windows and doors. We are restoring the parapet. Now, all the restoration, scope of work has already been approved by the staff level, and it's on the way. It's under construction at the moment. So the idea is to bring back the building, both artistically, architecturally, back to its original, splendor, and also, bringing back the cornice, which I also mentioned at the start. That's all under the heading of restoration. One thing I should also note is that the building is in really poor shape, and in terms of just cracks in the masonry, which are currently being repaired, and the garden wall eventually is actually leaning and eventually would come down, which we decided and would putting up a garage would be ideal in that sense, along that same vein.
Thank you, Mr. George. For the audience, I want to point out that the architect has provided a full block plan. And as he's pointing out, which is very stark, he's pointing at the House of Hills facility at the corner of St. John's and Brooklyn Avenue, which was expanded and enlarged prior to the area being designated as a historic district. That's very key, because we don't want to continue that pattern right now, other than that extension at the House of Hills on the corner of St. John's and Brooklyn Avenue. The block is fairly pristine and clear of enlargements. So I just want to point that out to the audience. And we've been on this almost an hour now for one item. So at this point, I have to ask for a motion from the audience, from the attendees on this item. And a motion and then a second, then discussion on the motion, and then we'll vote on it, okay? So I ask for a motion on the item.
Okay. Take a stab at a motion, and I'm going to ask that
Who's speaking?
Deborah Young,
Thank you.
okay, that the China board members in particular and anyone else at large from the Land Use Committee weigh in. I'm certainly open to that. I make a recommendation that we support this project with the following stipulations. That we eliminate that the garage rooftop be eliminated. I think that was the major thing that we had an issue with. You explained everything else, I think, to our satisfaction. China board members.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
this is Kathy Islam.
Hi, Kathy. Go ahead.
I would like to add that would it be possible for in order to support the motion, to support the project, that the bulkhead be framed out like some other builders do, to actually see what it looks like, the height and width look like with 2x4s?
Good idea. I support that.
Yes, we could do that. We actually do plan to do that, and we could certainly notify you when that's available for you to view.
Okay. Do you have a date to go back before LPC yet?
We do have a date in October. I don't have my calendar, and I could get you the date at a later date after this meeting. Let's see.
I would want to point out that if this support is being conditioned on the committee being able to see a model.
We don't have a
model.
Right.
We would be asking the applicant to return on the first Thursday in October to present the revised status to show us what it would actually look like once it's framed out with 2x4.
And I think that's where I was going when I was asking about his date, because I would not want our next meeting to be comprised of this lengthy discussion.
Right.
It would only be to address those stipulations that we're called. And okay, thanks, Gib. I see Gib said his hearing could not be before October 12th, so that would be prior to. So this should be a quick and easy review, Mr. George, if you would be open to that, so that we can really see how this would impact, because that was another big piece of our Southern Crown Heights North Association's concern.
I'm just looking at my date on. We have a hearing on October 5th. LPC.
This is Peter Crashes. May I, and I know that Ms. Young expresses support for the garage, but may I ask that the garage also be framed out, and so that that be documented as well?
Okay, support that.
Okay.
This is Sharon Wedderburn. May I also add something to what Peter said? Because as Sarah Laser had noted in the comments, don't other residents who have access to parking have that similar issue with cars being nicked? So if we're going to examine a frame out of the garage, it would also be helpful for us to look at the existing opening for such garage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I want to go back to Gib. You mentioned that they could not be before October 12th, but Mr. George is saying their hearing is October 5th.
Right. If the hearing is October 5th, that would not leave time under normal conditions for this committee to see a mock-up. In fact, actually, I misspoke. It's not October 12th. It would actually be October 19th, because the full board would have to vote on October 14th.
Okay.
So I think we would need the applicant to
Okay.
agree to delay past, past October 14.
Okay.
And I would say it is typical that that a mock-up is presented at this point.
Okay.
So the lack of a mock-up is, is unusual.
Okay. So then I would like to withdraw my motion and reframe it differently.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I make a motion that we withhold support pending the applicant coming back with the mock-ups as just suggested, and rescheduling their hearing with, well, a recommendation to that would mean that they would have to reschedule their hearing with LPC.
I second that. This is Sharon Wedderburn.
Hey, I want to say that the bulkhead on the roof needs to be part of this request, right? That's part of it. Then the business about the garage rooftop terrace. There should be language in the motion regarding that aspect of the design as well. Ms. Young, I'm with you. If you would proceed with that.
This is Peter Crisis. One more time, I apologize. Wouldn't we normally also include the pergola in the mock-up? If we don't normally require that or ask for that, then I withdraw it. But it seems to me that our standard has typically been that whatever could be visible from the street is included in the framing.
That is my recollection as well, Mr. Crassus.
Thank you.
It seems like we might not be using raised hands or chat to ask for the floor, so I just like to know what the process is tonight.
Yes, we've been fast and furious. So to try to bring some order to this, I would ask that Gibbs' reminder be attended to, so we have some order. So at this point, I can't see who's up.
I also have my hand raised.
Okay, so you're I'm hearing you. Right now, Ms. Young has the floor, so I would ask her to restate her motion. And I know there was a second from Ms. Wedderburn, but the motion did not pick up the initial aspects that I expected to hear. Ms. Young, am I presuming too much?
I don't know, Ethel, I'm lost, but I don't know if this is appropriate, but Gibb had his hand up and had a question, and I would hate to restate my motion and then have to go back and reframe it because Gibb may have something valuable to contribute. So I would like to defer and that the floor be given to Gibb so that he could ask or make whatever statement he wanted to make.
Floor is ceded to Mr. Bocconi. Mr. Bocconi?
Okay, so two things. First, from a point of order, since we have a motion and a second, we're debating the motion, and we can amend it. The second, now I want to speak to the motion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bocconi. I believe she withdrew it.
Oh, okay. Well, then we have then I guess I'll make my second comment, which is it seems to me we have two options at this point. Either the applicant can agree to return on to delay his LPC hearing and return on the 7th of October to present a new set of boards with the mock-ups, or we can make a motion in support based on what we want to see the outcome of those mock-ups be, because the Landmarks Commission is going to see the mock-ups. I would say in that instance, our recommendation would be probably pretty severe with respect to the mock-ups, like basically none of these structures are visible from any public right-of-way. But I don't think we have the option of we can't table without the applicant's agreement to come back, because he'll go to the hearing and there will be no statement from the community board.
Thank you, Mr. Bocconi. That being said, Ms. Young, do you want to reframe your motion?
Well, I would, yes and no, but I want to ask the applicant, is he willing to reschedule his hearing? because that's going to dictate my motion.
Mr. George?
Yes, I'm still here. Let's see. Yeah, we were really trying to get on that, even, yeah, we were really trying to get on that October 5th calendar, which we sort of agreed to with all our consultants. Is there a way to, do you meet in between? Is there, I guess, a way for you to meet in between, or?
We meet, the community board, land use committee meets first Thursday, and the full board meets the second Thursday. So
Okay.
we're asking you to return for October meetings, and your presentation to LPC would then be the third week in October.
Right. Okay. I do have to consult with my client.
Okay, then.
Is there a way for me to get back to you on this? Or?
This is where we are this evening, so I would ask Ms. Young to frame her motion accordingly.
Okay. All right. Let me frame my motion then. My motion is to withhold support on this project based on the absence of the markups for some critical aspects of this project.
Those aspects being the rooftop terrace,
right?
The garage roof, and the building roof pergola. Am I correct?
Correct.
The bulkhead.
And the bulkhead.
Okay. Is there a second for this withholding support for the lack of the mock-ups?
I second it again.
Okay, so then we'll call the roll on this vote to withhold support from this proposal based on the absence of mock-ups for those. Can somebody mute their microphone, please?
I want to ask
mute your microphone.
May I offer a brief friendly amendment? In the event that this resolution passes, I'd like to suggest our letter to the Landmarks Commission include the information that we asked the applicant to return with a complete presentation that includes mock-ups.
Ms. Young, do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, but I also raised my hand.
Go ahead.
Yes, I accept that friendly amendment, but I'd also wanted to make another amendment that if the applicant confers with the owner and they are in agreement, then that would, sending a letter to LPC would be unnecessary, correct?
One way or the other, we have to send a letter to LPC.
Well, if we sent a letter that the applicant has agreed to return in in October, then that would be the extent of the letter, correct? Wouldn't have to put anything else in there.
I would strongly advise that we inform the agency of the reason that we're requesting a return.
Well, but we would be requesting a return based on the applicant's agreement to return.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I just step in first? I apologize. So we would agree to return, to the committee, whatever date you stipulate at your next meeting, an October meeting.
Okay. Which then would include your rescheduling your hearing with LPC.
Yes, that would.
Okay.
I would notify them of just the ongoings of this meeting and.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so restate the motion. The motion is to withhold support until the mock-ups for the rooftop terrace on the garage, the building rooftop pergola and the bulkhead mock-ups be presented to the Land Use Committee at its meeting in October. Then the applicant goes to LPC. Microphone.
I would like to say something. Should I raise my hand?
I'm sorry, Ms. Collins. I'm just about to ask Ms. Wedderburn if her second still holds.
Oh, sorry.
It does still hold.
Okay, so we've had a discussion. You have one last question, Ms. Collins, before we call the roll on this item?
Yes, I'm just trying to understand the wording of the motion. And it says we're withholding our support until the mock-ups are presented.
Correct.
We're withholding our support until we see them and if we approve them, not just that they'll be presented. But they have to meet our approval.
Okay, Ms. Young, this is your motion.
I'm sorry. Would they have to meet our approval? Well, we will proceed accordingly, you know, based on what they present. And then a motion would be made at that time.
Well, I was just referring to the language of the motion that was just stated.
We understand that, and I think
okay.
we're the language that we put in the letter and in this discussion now, we're asking for a mock-up, and of course we review it and vote on the item. And does it meet the tests that he's showing in this presentation, that it's not visible from the street? It's got to match what he's showing us today. Okay, so that's part of it. Ms. Wedderburn, you still good? You still supporting?
I'm still good.
All right, I'll call the roll on this. Ms. Islin?
Albert Appleton,
Yes.
Lisa Atkinson,
You have to be a little louder, and everybody else, close your mics, please.
Lisa Atkinson, Princess.
Doesn't answer, you can go back, okay?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Lisa. Princess Ben James.
Yes.
John Buckholtz is not here. Robert Howland's not here. Janet Collins.
Yes.
Kevin Farley.
Yes.
Johnny Granville.
Yes.
Kathy Islin, yes. Sarima Jordan.
Yes.
Peter Crashes.
Yes.
Sarah Lazor.
Yes.
Fleur Ortiz.
Yes.
Celine Rosado.
Yes.
Meredith Stanton.
It's Staten. He's not here.
Ethel Titus.
Yes.
Gib Viconi.
Yes.
Ursula Witherspoon. Not here. Sharon Wedderburn.
Oh, I'm definitely here. Yes.
Oh, Urso, yes. Sharon. Sharon Wedderburn.
Ms. Wedderburn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
Deborah Young.
Yeah.
Hi, I didn't hear my name called. Nora Daniel.
Nora Daniel.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeses.
Louder, please.
19 yeses, no abstentions.
Thank you.
Ms. Tyus, I see a note in the chat from Robert Callahan saying he was not on the roll, but he voted. I don't know if that was picked up.
Okay.
I can go back. Robert Callahan.
So it's got 20. You have 20 yes?
Thank you.
No nays and no abstentions, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you very much, Ms. Islin. So thank you for coming in, Mr. George, and we will look to see you the first Thursday in October.
Okay, thank you so much, committee members. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is an update on going through the ULURP process with 840 Atlantic Avenue. And I would ask Mr. Bocconi to speak to that. The proposer, the applicant, is asking for more density than the resolution that the community board passed for this particular item. And Mr. Bocconi can explain how we're trying to make this happen for the purposes of affordable housing.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Titus. Good evening, everyone. So as Ms. Titus mentioned, 840 Atlantic obviously is a project I think everyone here is pretty familiar with. We've had several presentations on it. It's near the end of ULURP. The community board has passed a resolution on it. The borough president has issued an opinion. It's been to the CPC, and it's going to go to the city council within the next couple of weeks. So it's pretty unusual at this time for an item like this to come back to the community board for consideration. But in this case, the applicants have communicated to Ms. Witherspoon, Ms. Tias, and myself a proposal that is different enough from what was presented when the community board voted on it that we believe it is due consideration by the committee again. The reason for that is because, as I think everyone understands, the support of the community board on this application is very important to the city council member, and we want to provide the opportunity to hear this proposal and have a vote on it, because the community board's opinion will have a large effect on the city council member's opinion. What I'm going to do is present kind of an overview of what the applicants now propose and compare that to what they originally proposed and what the community board passed in its resolution. After explaining that, I'm going to pass things over, I think, to Tom Lee, who's on the call now. He's one of the applicants, and he can speak to it further and answer some questions. Let me begin by sharing my screen here. Hopefully you guys can see this. It's a little bit tricky for me to run WebEx with a screen share, but what we're looking at, can everybody see the spreadsheet that's on my screen right now? Is that visible?
I can see it.
Okay. So here in this column is the original proposal made by the applicants. There are a number of different sections of this project that have been proposed for different zoning. You can see under their original proposal, these sections along Atlantic Avenue were proposed at C63X. C63X is a 9.7 FAR. There's a section along Atlantic Avenue that is left out of the new zoning. That will be left M11. On Pacific Street, they also proposed C63X with a section to the east that was left R6B. So that was a total of about 327,000 square feet, an FAR of about 8.4, and a total of about 307 residential units. They originally proposed MIH option 2, which is 30% affordable units at 80% AMI. That represents an income of approximately $86,000 for a family of 3 on average, with some variation higher and lower with the income distributions. And that represents about 92 affordable units. In May, the community board passed a resolution withholding support of the application pending the modification that these frontages on Atlantic Avenue be rezoned to C62A, that Pacific Street, the C63X portion be rezoned to R7A, and that the R6B portion be maintained. That was, as you can see, about more than 100,000 square feet less of floor area, an average FAR for the project of 5.8, a total of 193 units, And we called for MIH option 3, which is 20% affordable at 40% AMI. So that's an average income of approximately $43,000 for a family of 3. And that would have yielded about 39 affordable apartments. The applicants have come back with a proposal with 2 alternatives. So I'm going to talk about what is the same in those 2 alternatives and what is different. Both include C63X at the corner of Atlantic and Vanderbilt Avenue. But to the east of that, there will be a 50-foot frontage on Atlantic Avenue that would be zoned C62A. C62A represents an FAR of 7.2, which is effectively the same as what has been called for by the community board in its MCRANT resolution. And that addresses the potential for precedent setting to the east. Both proposals will utilize MIH option 3. This is very significant. This represents, in my view personally, a significant concession on the part of the developer. This is 20% at 40% AMI. Given the increased density of these proposals, it will result in either 15 or 20 more deeply affordable apartments than the community board's resolution would have provided. Both proposals include 50,000 square feet of non-residential use. That's more than 1 FAR. So again, that is, the community board was looking for 6 to 7 FAR along Atlantic in exchange for additional non-residential use. And there will be more than 1 FAR of non-residential use in each of these proposals. And then finally, both proposals include 8,000 square feet for the creative outlet, which will be permanent arts center use. Now, the difference between these 2 proposals largely turns on what happens on Pacific Street. In alternative 1 here, Pacific Street would be zoned at C63A. C63A is an FAR of 8 under option 2, C63X, which again we discussed before is 9.7. However, the applicants have proposed making a setback along Pacific Street of 9 stories, which matches the height of R7A, which the community board had asked for. So there will be a setback of 9 stories that will be 40 feet long under the option 1 with the C638 zoning and 60 feet long under the option 2. To get an idea of what a 9-story, 60-foot setback looks like, that's basically what has been done at 550 Vanderbilt at the corner of Vanderbilt and Dean under the Atlantic Yard Society guidelines. So again, I would say while both of these alternatives are more than 7 FAR, the deep affordability is, I believe, unprecedented for us in this district. I don't think any ULURP application we have reviewed, or even voluntary inclusionary, has gone 100% deep affordability. And the importance of that lies in what we found out from the census data that was released recently. Our district has seen a tremendous amount of displacement, and it's displacement at the low income level. When we began the MCROWN process, we said that we wanted to target affordable housing at the median income for Community District 8. That was about 7 years ago. At that point, the median income in Community District 8 was about 60% AMI. It's now over 80% AMI. It's not because people here have just earned more money in the last 7 years. It's because of displacement. And so if we want to get in front of that, if we want to provide some opportunity for people earning lower incomes to remain in this district, deep affordability is important. Since these apartments will be offered through the Housing Connect lottery, in each case, 50% of the affordable apartments will be preferenced for residents of Community District 8. So that's depending on how you're looking at 27 or 29, 30 apartments available for low-income families in Community District 8. And again, I don't know that we've ever had a project up to this point that has delivered anything like that. So it's a significant additional community benefit over what is in the M-Crown resolution. And it's one of the reasons we think this deserves consideration. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Tom and let him, speak to these proposals and answer your questions.
Okay, just want to put on the floor comments that we're getting from other members of the audience that we're looking at updated numbers from the 2020 census, correct?
Well, the numbers in the spreadsheet reflect what today HPD is showing as AMI in New York City and these income bands. So these income bands are they're HPD's income bands.
So this would be from the American Community Survey from 2018, I presume.
Well, no. I'm not. Although I referenced census data in what I just said, none of this information is census information. The census, what the census showed was there was significant displacement of African Americans in Community District 8 in Brooklyn overall, but especially in Community District 8.
Thank you, Mr. Bocconi. Let's have the applicant come forward at this time. I see one question from Sarah Lazar as the applicant comes on. She's asking about the timeline. Again, we are looking at very near term because as Mr. Bocconi said, it's been through the process. I believe the city council will meet on this on September 13th. And then it would go to the mayor. So let's see, today's the 2nd. So that would be the 2nd. Wait a minute, that's October. That would be Monday, the 13th of September.
Yeah,
okay.
This is a very, as Ms. Tyus said, this is a very contracted time frame.
Yes, so we're moving this along. I applaud Mr. Bocconi for what he's trying to do here. It's a very difficult position we are in to do this type of very fine-grained analysis where we started out with a misstep where the applicant didn't come to us first, but I won't go there. I'm turning it over to Mr. Lee and Mr. Rottenberg. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Hyas. Thank you, Mr. Bocconi. It's kind of rare and unexpected for me to be in front of this board at this time, but we had a time since we were last in front of the CB8 to really think about some of the issues that members of this board were sensitive to, and we have other conversations with members of the community and other constituents that are part of the ULURP process. And we come to realize there are certain things that the community really wants to see, including the deeply affordable units, a meaningful amount of commercial on the corner. While we think this is a very special corner that warrants a density comparable to some of the corners across the street, and that will allow us to build both commercial and residential. We were sort of surprised by some of the opposition that we were met with when we were previously in front of the board. What we're hoping to achieve here is with the deeply affordable units, and there are actually a couple other concessions that community benefits that we're including in the proposal that are not necessarily highlighted just based on the numbers, including the inclusion of local business enterprises, minority business enterprises, and women-owned business enterprises. And so we really hope to be able to get the support, or at the very least, non-opposition from members of this community board for what we're proposing now. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Okay, I'm looking for questions. I want to see if any hands are raised here. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Are there any questions from the audience? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. We will be having city planning come in over the next few months so that we can explore.
I have a question.
Your hand is up. Go ahead, Ms. Lazarus.
I thought it was. With regard to small businesses and small business minority women, consideration, with your leases and such, will you guys be providing stipulations for COVID type situations, as there's been a lot of landlord pushback on those type of situations, and I think everybody is kind of sensitive and doesn't really know how to handle it. So just wondering how you intend on being mindful of those situations for small businesses.
Are you referring to the commercial spaces or the residential leases?
Commercial spaces.
I think we would do everything possible to mitigate the effects of this horrible pandemic. I think there are a lot of new requirements that we have to consider when we build these spaces. And I'm not sure if there's anything else that you're looking to cover on that front.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Ms. Lazar? Did you have a question, Sarah Lazar?
Yes, thank you for recognizing me. I was wondering, I'm glad that the development team recognized how crucial the question of affordability is. I feel like, the community has been making noise about this for quite a long time, and the census data definitely proved that out. I'm a member of the community board, but I'm also a member of the Crown Heights Tenant Union. And the tenant union recently has also been engaged in the 960 Franklin fight, which was offering more affordable units, a greater percentage than what would be mandated through MIH, because the question of what affordability level of the specific units is very, very important, definitely. But the problem that the tenant union has been focused on is that the influx of higher rent apartments, essentially the unaffordable units in these buildings, is so much that it places upward pressure on all of the rents of all of the buildings in the nearby area. And I appreciate that you've come with a different proposal. I truly do. And I hate to look a gift horse in the mouth, but I was wondering if there has been any discussion of increasing the percentage of the building that would be affordable beyond what MIH requires. I'm going to stop talking. Thank you.
I think the difficulty for us is we're trying to find the right balance between the affordable units and some of the other items that we have as part of our proposal, including the community facility, which at the current stage, the rent is determined at a $750 per square foot number. If you're talking about AMI rents for the residential portions, a 40% AMI is roughly $15 per square foot. So I just want to give some context with how affordable I think that community facility space is becoming, which we had to build, and that's very costly. So there are other components that we're including in this proposal that I think are below market, that's has to be subsidized by the other portions of the building. We have thought about higher percentage, but there was a trade-off between the AMI versus a percentage. We initially came to the board with a option 2 proposal. That was 30%, 80% AMI. We were willing to kind of tweak around with the affordability a little bit. That would have created more affordable units, in my opinion. I think the board really wants deeply, deeply affordable units. Unfortunately, to increase that number even slightly has a very significant impact on our projections. At the end of the day, this is a projection, right? We have to go through an extended process to develop this building. There's financing, and there are a lot of other uncertainties in that process, which we have to be able to mitigate to have the confidence to go forward with building such a large-scale project. With regard to 960 Franklin, I'm not sure exactly what the breakdown between all those affordable units are. I think, I suspect out of that 50%, there are certain other units that are higher level AMIs, which you may not even consider as affordable. For all intents and purposes, those are probably just market rate. So the real percentage within that 50% is probably closer to where we are. And I think they're getting a bigger increase in density. It's a very large scale project there. So I guess we would like to, but unfortunately, just the numbers really restrict our ability to increase the number of deeply affordable units.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Are there any other questions? Let me go back to the chat. I see there was a question from Mr. Crassus. I don't know if everyone else is watching the chat on this. And then there was a question from Nicole LeMay. Mind what's happening here. Affordable housing, maintaining the existing neighborhood seems in total parole. I don't quite get the drift with that one. Mr. Crassus asked for a revisit on the number of affordable units in each alternative that will have the deepest degrees of affordability and how many square feet change and square feet there is for the affordable units. Do you mind repeating yourself, Mr. Bocconi?
Sure. Let me, I can bring up the chart again, 1 second.
Because we have to take a vote. Okay.
So again, this is what was originally proposed, 80%, 92 units at 80% AMI, representing an income level of about 86,000 on average. What is being proposed now is either 54 or 59 affordable units at 40% AMI or an income level of 43,000, again, for a family of 3. This, as I said before, I mean, although it's certainly, there's no upper limit on the number of deeply affordable units we would like to see in a building. We don't really ever see proposals like this that are strictly private projects. If they come out, they come out in projects where there's some city-owned property involved, and that's not the case here. When we consider this in the framework of, let's say, what we did with the Grand Pacific rezoning, which was also an M-Crown, there we gave one additional FAR for 25% of the first floor with doing M-Crown uses. Here, we're looking to give, depending on how you look at it, 0.6 or 1.1 FAR for a very significant number of deeply affordable apartments, the type of units that are the most oversubscribed in housing lotteries and the hardest for applicants to reach. So this is very unusual for anything we've ever seen in this community board.
Thank you, Mr. Bocconi. Are there other questions?
This is Elaine Weinstein. I put a question in the chat. I remember at one of our meetings, several representatives from Pacific Street were very vociferous about their concern about the density and height on Pacific. And I was just curious whether at ULURP or any other meetings.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Yeah, Elaine Weinstein.
Thank you, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just curious whether Pacific Street residents have had a chance to see the setback that you're recommending and what was their opinion about it.
I don't know that Pacific Street residents have had that chance. I mean, it is the same height that we were talking about for in our resolution in May, which is 9 stories. That's the R7A. That's the R7A height. The difference is it only covers either 60 or 40 feet of the lot, not 100 feet of the lot length. So it's not different in terms of the transition effect onto Pacific Street than what the community board voted for in May.
I guess I'm just raising it because they were very ardent in their displeasure. And I just thought as a community board, we certainly might have a responsibility to find out their feeling about it and express it. But they should be informed and therefore be able to speak up. Thanks, Gib.
I think that's right. I think we are concerned about that, which is why in May we voted for R7A and R6B on Pacific Street. And that is that height factor is largely being preserved here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bocconi. I believe Mr. Crassus had a question on the sizes of the affordable housing units. Will the square footage for the affordable housing units, Mr. Lee, can you answer that question?
Sure. The average size of the affordable units will be consistent with the market rate units. And on average, the units will be low above 800 gross square foot per unit. Of course, we're going to have unit sizes ranging from 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom to 3 bedrooms. So you could have some bigger units that are 1,200 square foot 3 bedrooms, or 900 square foot 2 bedrooms, or a 650 square foot 1 bedroom. But on average, I think the apartments are going to be over 800 square foot per unit.
Okay, let me ask my question a different way. The 800 square foot average size of the units, is that 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
Well, if you take all the 1, 2, 3 and average them, that's where you get the 800. The 1 bedrooms are typically around 650 square feet. 2 bedrooms, you're looking at anywhere between 800 on the smaller side up to maybe 950 square feet. And 3 bedrooms are usually closer to 1,000 square feet and maybe a little bigger than that.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm looking for. Does people want to raise your hand to have a question answered at this time before I ask for a motion on this item? Okay, so we have the average square feet, the setback, we've been over that twice. There'll be a mix of affordable unit sizes.
I want to make I just also want to point out what is likely to happen if we were to decide not to support either of these proposals. In that event, what we should probably expect is that the approved zoning will be C6-2A for the Atlantic Avenue frontage, and perhaps for Pacific Street or part of Pacific Street as well. And there will not be a deep affordability, affordable housing offering here, and perhaps not the type of controls for guaranteeing the permanent use for the Arts Center that would come with an agreement with the community board. So I want to make sure everybody kind of understands how that what the flip side of that is. We don't have any way to compel an agreement for what the community board voted on in May.
We have the support of the council member.
Yes, that's right. And the council member is and I think we understand that she has said publicly that she's supportive of this. But some of the things that we said in our resolution in May require a binding commitment with the landlord. I mean, with the applicant, which would take the form of something like what we did at Grand Pacific. We can't compel that, and it might not happen if this moves forward, without without the participation of the community board. I just want to make sure that folks listening to this understand that as well.
I am flummoxed at this point that this is what I'm hearing. My head is about to, no, I'm not going to go there. We have the support of our majority leader council member.
Yeah,
So I don't understand your
let me be specific. The community board called for MIH option 3 in May. MIH option 3 is and so that could be mapped with this, but it's an option, and the applicant would be under no requirement to do MIH option 3, and would likely do option 1, which could be mapped, as a requirement. So we would not have the deep affordability would, even at this lower level, would likely not be there. We would not necessarily have an agreement that has the type of enforcement provisions that we would write that would ensure that an art center would have permanent space in the building. So those are, again, I want to make sure that those trade-offs are understood by everybody. I think Kathy's question is a good question, what she's just typed in the chat.
I'm looking. I see a question from Robinson. We will have to go back to that.
Ms. Tice, this is Kathy.
Yes, I see your question. Why don't we ask the developer what they would be likely to do?
If Gib is saying the developer is likely to do X, the developer is sitting here with us. Why don't we ask him or the
yes,
they would likely?
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't speak for the developer, by the way. I simply stated what we could expect as a function of how the ULURP would work out and what would be required under ULURP, and what would not.
So if the rezoning is at a lower density, unfortunately, we simply cannot include the deeply affordable units. I had explained before to other people that asked about the portion of commercial and the amount of community facility space on a lower density. That amount of affordable that would be required in any case, either under option 1 or option 2, plus the 8,000 square foot for creative outlet, plus some of the commercial uses. As much as you might think that commercial on the first 2 levels could be profitable, the retail potentially could be leased up to retail tenants, grocery store, pharmacies, whatever. Second floor, unfortunately, we actually don't see that as generating a profit. So the proportion of space compared to that's not market rate residential versus what is market rate residential becomes too significant, and so we had to cut out all the deeply affordable units to make the project feasible. And the reality is that doesn't give us enough confidence to invest money. So what the community board previously has suggested, where Atlantic would be the portion of the lot facing Atlantic Avenue would be rezoned to a C6 2A. We would not proceed with the development in that case. So nothing would happen. Between the 2 proposals, the 2 revised proposals that we're coming back with, where the difference in the 2 schemes is, one, on the Pacific facing portion of our lot is C6 3A with a 40-foot setback. In that scenario, we may or may not be able to use up all the development rights. And that it's a very significant setback that kind of respects the context on the Pacific side. The second revised proposal is on the Pacific side, where that district is rezoned to a C6 3X with an even deeper setback of a 60-foot. That would sort of allow us to reallocate some of the bulk closer to the corner where Vanderbilt Atlantic is. Going east on Pacific side, where there will continue to be a R6B portion, and there's going to be a buffer between the C6 and R6B districts, we really step down to the existing building height that's there. So that kind of terminates any encroachment of future rezoning because we're maintaining that R6B. And on the Atlantic side, of course, we have a slice of RAA that makes sure there's no future, there's no precedent by our site that would affect future rezonings going further east. And this is something that, thank you. Is there another question?
I don't see any in the chat right now, and I do want to remind the audience, committee members, community members, that we are looking at changing the zoning in the way that was described previously in all the presentations that you've seen. I don't think we have a map to show, but Gibb just showed us the proposed differences that we are being asked to choose from at this moment for adding density, which is something Majority Leader Cumbo is willing to give to this applicant in exchange for the additional affordable units. So what Gibb has parsed out for us to decide on tonight is to ask this private investor to give us as many affordable units as his plan with his financing will permit. So at this point, I would ask for a motion from the committee members on this project so that we can put it to a vote. And I won't ask Mr. Vacconi. I see Kathy raising her hand, and I will give her the floor. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Kathy. Okay.
A question in the chat, but Mr. Lee seems to be answering it. I think what would be helpful, if it's very hard to understand the setback. For some of us, it's difficult to understand the setback without a visual. So we're just trying to get an understanding before we are asked to vote on what the setback actually looks like. So if you could just go through it one more time, perhaps I'm the only one who needs that help. And if so, then you don't have to do it just for me. But if others would like to hear that as well, I would appreciate one more explanation of the setback. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm going to do, if you give me a minute or so, I'm going to pull up the satellite view of 550 Vanderbilt, where you can see that there's a 60-foot setback from Dean Street after reaching a height of, I think, 8 or 9 story. So let me pull that up. So I think that would be a good visual.
And this is for Pacific Street, correct?
And our setback would be on Pacific Street, correct? So I don't know if you can see this where my mouse is. Looking down at 550 Vanderbilt. It's a deep setback of 60 foot here. So we would do the same thing on Pacific here.
Okay.
This is really this is the appropriate example because it's really right next to the site we're talking about, and the problem is kind of the same. You have a building of greater density that's connecting to a historic district, and in the case of 550, and actually 535 Carlton is the same, which also connects to the Prospect Heights Historic District. They have the same 9-story, 60-foot setback.
do you have a comparable diagram similar to what you may have used in a prior discussion you'd like to share at this point in time, just to assist us in this analysis?
I don't have a diagram that shows the 60-foot setback. Just because
I know, that's why I'm asking Mr. Vicconi.
Well, what I have actually, I mean, I can show you the Atlantic Yards design guidelines envelopes, but I actually think what Mr. Lee is showing here is more effective because he's showing the actual building. And if you are, you know, if you're on Vanderbilt Avenue or if you've walked down Dean Street, and I'm certain that a number of the folks on this call have, you know what the effect of the setback is. It's there specifically because these larger density buildings are transitioning into something of much lower density. And that's what will be happening at the corner of Pacific and Vanderbilt as well. So this model in this case, it's being extended to that intersection as well. Again, we Peter is asking if it's deeper than 40 feet, and yes, the 550 Vanderbilt setback is 50 feet, but 550 Vanderbilt is also on a longer block than 840 Atlantic. It's about 90 feet longer. It is a little, and you know, Mr. Lee did present an alternative for a 60-foot setback on Pacific Street, and in that event, that's the variation that has C63X on Pacific Street. So essentially, that's a transition that would look a lot like this, basically. I mean, that's a valid thing to discuss. Whereas the C63A transition on Pacific Street would step down twice, basically. 3X would step down to 3A and then have the setback stepping down to 9 stories. The 3X variation on Pacific Street gives another 5 deeply affordable apartments. And so for that, one of the reasons that we're kind of discussing this tonight is to consider whether the additional affordable units that provides is a good trade-off for greater density and a bigger setback.
And there we have it. So at that point, now that you folks have heard the trade-offs and seen the numbers, I have to ask for a motion in support of one of those two options. That the applicant has made it clear they are willing to proceed with what we vote on that aspect tonight. Am I hearing someone in the background?
My wife just came in. I've just told her.
Can you mute yourself, sir?
I will mute. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so I see Mr. Callahan wants to put a motion on the floor. Mr. Callahan, please speak up.
Ms. Tyus, I am a junior member of this committee and feel pretty uncomfortable on such a substantial item offering the motion. So if there's someone with more seniority who'd prefer to offer a motion, I am happy to defer.
I see your comment in the chat. And I see a comment from Ms. Islin. I wish you would speak up, Ms. Islin.
Well, you said that we had to vote on one or the other of these, but the other, I'm not saying I prefer this, but the other option is to hold to what our original vote was. Isn't that a possibility as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, do you want to speak to that? Oh, Meredith Staten has joined us. I'm amazed and very pleased.
So, Ms.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Staten. Mr. Vicconi, you are trying to finish up the business here?
Well, I actually just wanted to accept Mr. Callahan's invitation to make a motion here. And to Ms. Islin's point, if the motion doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. But and the committee's resolution will stand. But I would like to make a motion in support of the first option that's presented here, and move that the Land Use Committee recommends support of the application subject to the following conditions. That the zoning be revised as follows. The frontage 150 feet along Atlantic Avenue will be zoned C63X. The remaining frontage along Atlantic Avenue will be zoned C62A. The frontage of 125 feet along Pacific Street will be zoned C63A. However, a setback of 100 feet in height and 40 feet deep shall be provided, and the remaining frontage along Pacific Street be zoned R6B. Second, that the applicants make a binding commitment to provide 8,000 square feet for permanent use as an arts center. Then that the applicants make a binding commitment to provide non-residential use of 50,000 square feet. And finally, that the completed building offer affordable housing under the terms of option 3 of the city's mandatory inclusionary housing program.
Mr. Piccone, I must ask that you paste your motion in the chat.
I will do so. 1 second, please.
Thank you very much.
I'll paste it in the chat, and I've typed it out here on Word, so I can also, I don't know how easily this shows up in the chat, but I'll share the Word version too, so folks can see it.
Okay, our access to your Word version would evaporate when we close the session. The chat can be saved.
Yeah, that's fine. I pasted it into the chat. I've just put this up here for the benefit of everybody who might like to read it on one screen.
And this is actually a practice that I will be asking motion makers to follow going forward. You get the agenda at least a week in advance of these meetings. You review it, you come, you have your comments, and I would ask you to come with written motions just as Mr. Piccone is doing at this point in time. That is standard practice for organized parliamentary procedure. So written motions are very, very helpful. And Mr. Piccone is pasting his in the chat. And I thank you very much. And I'm going to go over the top with this and also ask you to email it to me and Ms. Island. Is that okay?
I can do that, sure. Hang on 1 second.
Thank you. Thank you. So now,
I have, excuse me, Ms. Tyus, it's Elaine Weinstein again. Yes. I have a point of clarification. Can someone remind us whether in our original approval, we specified an arts center for this space, or was it just an open community space? I didn't remember that it was specifically an arts center.
In fact, we did specify for an arts use.
We did.
Yes, that's my recollection as well. And these promises will differ from application to application. We have a couple more of these to go, so they may start to merge into each other in your memory. But this one is definitely an art center. So
Thank you.
We have a written motion before the body. If there are no more questions, I ask for a second.
And Wedderburn, I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Wedderburn. And we have the motion on the floor. I'm sorry for the background noise. I have my mic open. I can't afford it. I can't avoid it at this time. Okay, so we've got to call this again.
Mr. Cal,
I'm sorry, Ms. Island, do you want to reread the motion?
Well, I just want to, Mr. Callahan would like to be heard for a moment.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Callahan.
Just a brief point of information.
Yes.
Does this, Mr. Piccone, do you term this to be sort of like a, I guess, sort of a formalization of what the developer is proposing, or is this, are you adding conditions that sort of like merge what we as a community board originally supported with the proposal that was given to us by Mr. Lee?
I think everything in this resolution is part of the proposal now being made by Mr. Lee, and he can correct me if that's not the case.
Thank you, Mr. Piccone.
Yes.
We're going to go through the motion that's on the floor. We have the motion from Mr. Pagoni with a second from Ms. Wedderburn. The committee is recommending support of the application subject to the following conditions. That the zoning be revised as follows. The proposed zoning. The frontage 150 feet along Atlantic Avenue shall be zoned to RC6 3X. The remaining frontage along Atlantic Avenue shall be zoned C6 2A. Frontage 125 feet along Pacific Street shall be zoned C6 3A. However, a setback of 100 feet in height and 40 feet in depth will be provided. And the remaining frontage along Atlantic Avenue shall be zoned C6 2A. The frontage 125 feet along Pacific Street shall be zoned C6 3A. However, a setback of 100 feet in height and 40 feet deep shall be provided. And the remaining frontage along Pacific Street shall be zoned R6B. And the applicants will make a binding commitment to provide 8,000 square feet. Wait, I lost my place. 8,000 square feet for permanent use as an art center, that the applicants make binding commitment to provide non-residential use of 50,000 square feet, and that the completed building offer affordable housing under the terms of option 3 of the city's mandatory inclusionary housing program. So that is the motion on the floor. If there are no questions, I'm going to ask that the roll be called on this. Are there questions? Going over the motion, are there questions?
If I could clarify one thing, and I think it's intended about this proposal, that the second bullet point referring to the remaining frontage on Atlantic Avenue shall be rezoned to C62A. That should be precisely 50 foot, as there's going to be another 18 foot that will remain M11.
I remember that.
Okay, I'll amend it accordingly. That's fine.
All right, are there any questions? Going once, going twice.
Ms. Tyus, I have a quick question.
Yes.
This agreement is binding with this developer?
Yes. Yes.
And if the building is sold?
Let me respond to that, Kathy. This is similar to what was done in the case of the Grand Pacific rezoning. The binding agreement has to be binding on all parties. This would take, so the binding agreement has not been completed yet. It will need to be between now and presumably the time the general meeting votes on this in a week. But like Grand Pacific, it will include a restrictive declaration that will build these terms as possible, to the greatest extent possible, into the deed of the property, and include an agreement for enforcement of compliance, as was done with Grand Pacific. So,
and just to
clarify,
for those of us who are newer to the committee and this work, what is the enforceability?
The enforceability is since this has not been completed, I can't speak to that on this agreement yet. We'll be working with these applicants over the course of a week, and that's not going to minimize the challenge of that hurdle as well. But that will have to be completed before the community board meeting. Here, we're looking for support from the land use committee to basically continue that process. So enforceability, generally, let me speak generally with respect to what we did in the case of Grand Pacific, has to do with remedies that address, let's say, the lack of providing the benefit that was promised. So we have an art center here being promised. If at some point in the future the art center, that space is no longer available for use as an art center, the remedy would be for funds to be provided as liquidated damages that could pay for an equivalent art center someplace else in the district. As an example, that's an example only.
Keeping it very simple. Money talks. So, if there are
Ms.
no
Tyus, excuse
yes,
me. With regard to Sharon's second, it
What
wasn't
is-
cleared with her with the amendment that was made to see. What was that?
It is acceptable to me.
Thank
Okay,
you. Ms.
thank you,
Waterman.
Sharon.
Okay, so this is the M11 holdover on the edge there, correct? Okay, so then we're all in agreement. There are no other
May I ask a
questions?
question?
Hello?
May I ask a question?
Who's speaking?
Staten.
Mr. Staten, I'm speaking to Gibb.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Is that part of the McDonald's spot as well?
Yes,
When you talk about-
this application includes the lot that's occupied by McDonald's. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure I got it right. Okay.
All right, then we will call the roll on this motion that is on the floor with a second by Ms. Whittemore. Mrs. Lynn, please.
Mr. Appleton,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
No.
Ms. Ben James,
Yes.
Member Callahan,
Yes.
Whoever has their mic open, please close your mic unless you're speaking. Please. Please close your mic unless you're speaking. Go ahead, Mrs. Lynn.
Janet Collins,
Abstain?
Nora Daniel,
Yes.
Kevin Farley,
Yes.
Ms. Granville,
Yes.
Kathy Island, yes. Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Peter Crashus,
No.
Sarah Lazar,
No.
Ms. Ortiz Joyner,
Yes.
Celine Rosado, Ms. Rosado? Was that a yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear Ms. Rosado.
Yes.
Thank you. Meredith Staten,
Yes.
Ethel Tyus,
Yes.
Gibb Viconi,
Yes.
Sir Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Ms. Weatherspoon,
She said yes.
I said yes.
thank you. Sharon Wedderburn,
Yes.
Elaine Weinstein,
Yes.
Deborah Young,
Yes.
(17) yes. 3 no, 1 abstention. Ms. Tyus, you're muted.
Thank you all for attending. We started at 2 hours ago, over 2 hours ago, for attending to the business of the development in our community. We could not do this work without your help. And going forward, we will be looking at having much more in-depth training sessions with subject matter expert speakers coming in so that we can understand some of the forces at work and how the codes that we have in place at the present will help us deal with future development in our community so that we all become acquainted with the limitations that we have when dealing with this built environment and adding to it and making it healthier and more welcoming for all of us. That said, I just want to remind you all that we have the DCP initiatives coming to the full board next Thursday. So make sure you're around for those. When we visit Open Restaurants Fresh, Health and Fitness, and Zoning for Accessibility. And those will be addressed briefly at our next full board meeting. Madam Chair, do you want to add to what we should be looking for at our upcoming full board meeting?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, so unless there's something else.
Ms. Aslan has her hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Since given tonight's conversation, I would like to ask or propose that we have a discussion among the committee about the ongoing process of negotiating these community benefits agreements. I know it's something that has been worked out in the past, but I think there are a lot of new members and a lot of other people participating. And it seems to be a process that's that's not transparent to everyone. And I'm not criticizing the process. I just think it would be really healthy for us to have a conversation about how this process works. Because if, as you mentioned, we're going to be doing there are more of these to come. I think it's important that we all understand, have a better understanding of how this works and what's involved. And certainly that we receive the proposals way in advance of reading them on the same night that they're brought to the committee. So I hope that can be considered for a future meeting and a future topic of conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lynn. I have to remind everyone that I'm used to getting complaints from the office that committee members ask for the materials multiple times. So when you get the first email, if it's 2 or 3 weeks before the meeting, bookmark it, put a date on your task, a reminder to go back and look at that email and read that material and formulate your questions so that as the meeting date gets closer, you have a better understanding of what we'll be looking at on the night of the meeting. Most of the people on this committee are working during the day, so we try to send it at least a week ahead. And in most cases, it's a couple of weeks ahead. So don't let it get lost in your mailbox. Mark it, read it, go back to it, and be ready to digest it on. And if you have feelings about it, draft a motion that you would present at the meeting. So these meetings run quickly and efficiently, and you're able to express your position on the proposal with some alacrity and conciseness. So I would ask that as well.
Yes, but Ms. Tice, tonight's material was completely new to us. This was not something we received and didn't read. This was new material brought to us in real time in the meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Kathy's point is well taken, and I want to express my appreciation for all the committee members who participated in this discussion tonight, because this did come in very late, and this is literally the last possible moment that we could have considered something like this before the city council votes on it. I would not expect that we do this way very often. It's not the ideal way to do it, and so I appreciate all of the attention and consideration that you all made tonight. I also want to say that I agree with Kathy's suggestion that we have a session where we talk about how, as a community board, we would go forward with private applicants like this with community benefit agreements, and that process be understood by the committee members. So I'm also in support of that suggestion.
Okay, I have to say that city planning has made what both Kathy and both Ms. Island and Ms. Vacconi are suggesting very easy. Okay. This process went to the CPC. That was online. That was virtual. It went to City Council. That was online. That was virtual. So if you want to follow any changes and comments that are being made, we can time our, say, a 20-minute post CPC comment meeting, post council hearing comment meeting. Those would be critical points at which we could come together as a committee and give each other feedback on the changes that are happening to any particular application as it goes through the process. And that process is available on DCP's website. The dates are there, and we can do that going forward. So I agree with both Gib and with Ms. Island. Ms. Lemonlee, I hope I'm saying your name right. Do you have a suggestion or a comment, question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have been trying to become a voting member to this community board since 2019, and I have been attending, as I'm sure you all remember me, like for consecutive meetings, and then I always, for whatever reason, missed the third meeting that, and my criticism goes out, and I'm sorry, Ms. Ethel Tias, I love seeing you and your persistence, but I need this whole system to make more accessible to people, because I have signed up for your email list to get announcements. I don't know how many times, and I don't get announcements. And I only find out about these meetings because, yes, from now, like for months now, I am subscribing to the Community Board Aid website, but I don't know what else I need to do or tell my fellow neighbors and community members to do, because I have tried so hard for almost 2 years to become a voting member of this community board, and it's to be made impossible.
Well, I'm surprised that this has not worked. I know this is the first time I'm seeing you.
I can respond to this, Ms.
I'm very sorry, Ms. Ethel. You've seen me a lot of times.
Yes.
And I've been talking to you in person about this, and I've handed my email address to you in person. And for some weird reason, it's up to me still. I am not getting an invitation or reminder email about any kind of meetings. It is up to me. I'm well equipped right now to figure out when there's a meeting, but I'm like looking forward for other people to be able to do so as well.
Okay, as I said near the opening of this meeting, I asked people to put in their full name, and if they would come dialing in on the phone when they spoke, if they speak, even if they don't speak, to say your name, I'm here, so that we can make a record of the attendance of community members who are not appointed by the borough president to be a member of this particular land use committee. And the same rules apply to the other committees for this community board. Okay, what we are doing is making a record. When you come on to the virtual call and you have your name, like we have one person, I got a name Kim, that's all we have is the first name up. And then there's a telephone number with no name. I'm asking people to make the record themselves. Okay, say your full name, come 3 times in a row, 4th time you come in a row, you get to vote. We make a record of who the guests are. It was easy when we met in person because
no, it wasn't. I'm so sorry, Ms. Tias. It wasn't, because I came to so many in-person meetings and we had the piece of paper and I wrote my name down. And I'm sorry, I'm having a German name. I wrote no. 2019. I have no.
Will you please close your microphone, Ms. Collins?
So I wanted to say something. So should I close it and open it again?
Yes, close it while she's speaking, and then you'll be recognized after she's done. Go ahead, Ms. Lemley. I remember you 2 years ago, and I can't say that it was a regular attendance. I can't say that. I would love to be able to say that, but honestly, I cannot.
Excuse me, Ms. Tyus. Excuse me,
Yes.
Ms. Tyus.
Yes.
Julia Neal is on the line.
Yes,
and
I know.
I just want her to speak.
Hi, yes,
The next
Ms.
voice we
Lemley,
hear. Thank
you
you.
and Mr. Jack Robinson, y'all have emailed our office accusing us multiple times of not adding you to either the mailing list for notices or for counting your attendance at meetings. I periodically, as in every 2 months, go through the attendance via WebEx. You guys have you specifically have attended 2 of like the last 8 meetings. That is not enough for voting rights. So unless, and this is the email that I responded to Jack Robinson about when he emailed us saying all these problems with our board and our record keeping, we don't keep the records with WebEx. You guys input our records that we use via WebEx. So as I said to him, unless he's using or you are using different names, different email addresses, etc., what it is that you guys are putting into the chat, what it is that you guys have as your name showing up, is not corresponding and correlating with what WebEx is giving us. So I don't have an accurate gauge of what your attendance is based on what you're saying and what you're inputting into the chat. And without that information, I cannot add you to the voting roster. It is just not possible. I have you listed as attending 2 of the last, last 6 or 8 meetings. That's not enough for voting rights. For voting rights,
Okay,
you need to attend 3
Julia, I'm
consecutive or
sorry.
4 of 6.
I hate to cut across and permit me, Chair Tyus. This conversation needs to go offline. Okay, we are finished with our applications, and we're not going to legislate this here. Okay.
I would like to make my comment though before we go offline as promised by the chair.
I really think that we've closed this issue. I agree with Chair Weatherspoon. I support Ms. Neal in her efforts at record keeping. I opened the meeting with a plea to all attendees to be specific with who they are, with the names, people who are calling in to announce your name. That's all I can do. And this is the 3rd time we're going over this in tonight's meeting.
I would like to make a comment about what she just said, if I may, because I was promised to be heard.
Ms. Collins, this is record keeping. I ask that your comment be sent to the board office so we can be considered in your recommendations for how we can.
I want her to hear I want to reply so she can hear me. I just want to make a simple statement saying that she herself just admitted on the web that she has not made a 3rd meeting.
Okay, thank you
She
very
just
much.
said that. So she said that she's never done a 3rd meeting in a row. So that's what I wanted to point out.
Thank you very much, Ms. Collins. Thank you. Okay, that takes care of that. And at some point it'll all click together, I hope. So let's see how we can close this meeting out and prepare to look at what we need to cover at our full board meeting coming up. And I am asking city planning to provide us with some more materials so people will feel informed about what is a C2, 3, 6A, 3X, whatever. So you hopefully will be getting copies of the zoning handbook for you guys to go to the office and pick up, and we'll see if we can make that happen. All right, so thank you all for coming. Unless there's anything else, we'll close the meeting. Hearing nothing else, the meeting is being closed. Thank you all. See you next Thursday.
Good night.